Hello lovelies people of the world. Today we're gonna talk about something called the meatball and the köfte. Usually we think that the meatball gets its name around these regions as köfte. But actually guys, it's not. It is quite different. And in this video, you're gonna see the difference and then you're gonna have incredibly tasty patties. And you will know, not just from the recipe, but you will know how to make it perfectly from your mind and from your heart. Guys, I believe our channel is kind of unique. I would like to teach you the mechanism of cooking so that you don't even need a recipe and it will come from inside. So I'm trying to give those information to you. But if you are a recipe person and want to follow a recipe, you can skip the next, 5, 10, 15 minutes of the video. I'm going to show you where you can just move to there and move to a great meatball and a great köfte recipe. When you look at the meatball, usually it's the shape. The shape is a ball. And when you look at köfte, it can come into various shapes, sometimes including a ball shape. But usually it's more elliptical and more pushed from the top. One is a ball, the other one is not. The meatball, actually, understanding from the name, it is meat. When the mixture of this minced meat with few ingredients gets a bigger shape, we then do not call it a meatball. What do we call it?
Meatloaf.
We call it a meatloaf, yes. But when it comes to köfte, köfte is like this big, in different size. The difference is actually the meatball and the loaf is usually dominantly meat, and those few side ingredients are really side ingredients. But actually köfte is a way of understanding and cooking. Like, you know how you make a crepe? Crepe is a style of making. Köfte is a definitely style of making. And sometimes the meat is dominantly main ingredient, but sometimes it's not. It's usually a mixture of few things. And I have listed here a few of them, but I'm going to explain it at the back. I have the equation for it. But we sometimes use onion juice. We sometimes use different kind of acids or base like baking powder to tenderize the meat. And then we have the binders which combine the meat, make the meat together. And I'll talk about those as well. And then taste additives like herbs, greens, spices. Whereas when we look at the meatball, we have taste additives like sometimes Worcestershire sauce, maybe sometimes the garlic, in few places a bit of onions, not too much.
Do they put rice?
No. They make rice balls in different traditions, but when it's like a meatball, they do not increase the amount of meat by usually adding rice, but usually adding breadcrumbs or crackers or eggs, usually in both. We have eggs. Eggs liquidify the mixture so that you need something which will soak up the extra juices, and usually then breadcrumbs or crackers come into play. Another thing, kneading. The name köfte comes from meat becoming like a paste. Think of the minced meat. Actually, minced meat have like small amount of meats like this, small chunks. What we do when we knead it, sometimes we put the water out of the cells. We damage the cells, actually. It also starts to rotten. Rottening, to a certain extent, means tenderizing the meat. You cut these cells, and then also something gets out and it works like a binder. The meat has filament-like building blocks in it, and when you push your energy to it, it becomes a kind of a binder. In köfte, we have extensive kneading. And extensive kneading meaning köfte coming together to itself, binding really well. And then this becomes sometimes almost like a very elastic köftes. But in this case, kneading, think of a burger patty, that's there. Think of like round meatballs, you just knead them sufficiently. You don't knead extensively. When kneading sufficiently means these cells do not get broken too much. They stay together, but they are not torn apart and became something else. They are individually standing still. For the meat to stand like this, have advantages and disadvantages. The most important advantage is when they are cooked, it is very juicy. A burger meat, like the water would fall from the sides because the water in the cells are still there. each time you eat it, it's gonna be gorgeous. But what is the disadvantage? The disadvantage is this is great when you first cook it, but then when you leave it, think of like when you grill a meat, what happens? You let it sit on a place, then there's this red watery thing that drops. Same thing happens in the meatball, either on the pan, it evaporates. If you don't eat it on the side, it gets out. So when the meat is not eaten immediately, then it won't be as tasty. Next day, we have this simile that we talk usually with Burak. The meat becomes like more rubbery. It's not as tasty anymore. But when you look at köfte, the cells are broken, and to those cells, there are binders and there are taste additives, and there's the sugariness, there's the bitterness, and there's the sweetness from the greens, freshness, all combined. You don't get usually the taste of the meat, you get something totally different. The next day, it tastes even better. Why? All those combinations get settled in the köfte as they are combined for a day. And then eaten cold, not so good, very good. And then easiness. Making meatballs are much easier, that's for sure. Like a great meatball recipe that I'm just gonna give you takes 2 minutes to prepare, 5 minutes to cook. If you let it sit for a while, that's better, but it's very, very easy. When you make a köfte, you need quite a few different spices, and then also you need herbs, you need onions. Onions are gonna bring tears to your eyes, so many things. So I hope I made it clear the difference of köfte and the meatball. Now I would like to tell you the anatomy and algorithm of köfte. Guys, I'm talking about this algorithm. Don't let it scare you. I am the person who wrote the book about Turkish cooking and its techniques, and it's actually making it incredibly simple. This is a köfte that you would normally see that I have drawn here. It's simple. It consists of a basic ingredient. In many cases it could be meat, and a binder. Binders could be eggs. Eggs are great binders, you know, we use it in so many places. Breadcrumbs with its starch works as a great binder. Sometimes rice, sometimes bulgur, and sometimes actions, which is kneading, also works as a great binder. And then we have the rotteners. You can rotten a food two ways: increasing the acidity, decreasing the acidity. Right, the chemist?
Yes.
Yes. For example, when you increase the acidity, what can you do? You can add onions, you can add some different kind of acids like lemon, yogurt, etc. The red meat starts to brown. In a way, it's kind of like cooking. We do that in ceviches, you know, when you put a fish, because it's a different kind of protein, an easier one to cook. We can directly see that it turns, for example, an opaque fish turns into white, and we know it has cooked. A similar thing happens in meat. Another way to rotten the meat is to add baking powder, mineral water, baking soda. These additives also suddenly gives you a smell. If you put too much, it smells like a bin, not a wastebasket because it's small.
It stinks.
Stinks like garbage. So when we make köftes like İnegöl köfte and in some kebabs, you probably have seen me using it. I'm going to put one recipe to it. This elastic meats sold on the streets of Istanbul as street food are usually with that. Anyways, then we have the multipliers. Because meat is very expensive and very valuable, it was before, it is now, and in later years probably it's going to be even more expensive. So our goal has been and will be using small amount of meat, making a lot of people feel full. How can we do that? With breadcrumbs, potatoes, with rice, with bulgur, and we can use it with some legumes. The taste of the meat, let's say, goes to the rice, and then, let's say, with a 250 gram of meat, you can fulfill 4 or 5 people very finely. Otherwise, that 250 grams of meat, when cooked, it's going to be 180 grams or something. Then it's gonna fill the stomach of one person. It's not something that we want at this point, at this economy. So, the multipliers. Last but not least, the taste heighteners. These are usually 2-3 things. First one, of course, we use the spices. Cumin works in miracles. Nutmeg works in miracles. We use some coriander, allspice, cloves. These are miracles. And then we have the greens. We usually use parsley. Armenians love using coriander in their meatballs. When we go down, it's more like mince, dill. Also in the old Istanbul cuisines, we use a lot of dill in the meats. Also something which came to our lives in the last 200 years, but in Turkey we love it. It's the paste. red pepper paste and tomato paste. It works as an umami in everything, increases the taste. And then we have the nuts. Nuts also have their umamis and the crunchiness increases the taste. I love pistachio. Pistachio works in miracles. And then cheese. For example, Italians in their meatballs use parmesan. In Turkey, we use kashar, less mature cheese, but it's really nice. The combination of that milk and the meat is very good. And then, of course, some fat. Fat could be from the animal, fat could be from an olive oil or butter or ghee. It could be some seeds oil sometimes. Those are all taste increasers. And when we look at the basic ingredient after talking about the fat here, the basic ingredients is usually a meat. Inside the köfte, the fat melts and gets heated and cooks the köfte actually. So fat content is quite important. The meat usually comes either from a veal or can be from lamb or it could be from it looks like a rooster, but think of it as chicken. What we do in perfect köftes in Turkey, we usually take a meat of the veal. The meat that we use in veal is actually around the ribs. We need at least 20, but usually 30 to 40% of fat. When the köfte is really tasty, you need a lot of fat. So sometimes you get it around the ribs and it's not like big chunks of meat. What was it? Closer to the bone. It has to be a male. It has to have a fat and meat content and it shouldn't move. So everything around the ribs of a veal meets that premise. Sometimes what we do is we mix the meat of the veal with the meat of the lamb. We make this combination to 40 to 60%. Here, Mr. Murat loves the combination, I think. Yeah, I can see his eyes. Yeah. It tastes much better. Then it comes to the meat. How do we grind the meat so that it becomes tasteful for different meatballs and köftes? One of the great köfte making is by zırt, which is you take the meat and the fat and then do it with your blades. And then you have the huge chunks. Usually kebab köftes are made this way. So there are big chunks and it's cooked usually on a mangal, which is a grill. And then you have this nice taste and the fat drops to the coal and creates a nice fume. And then fume gets a great taste of the meat. If you're doing a home cooked kebab, instead of using your blades and using your knives and it's gonna be hard, you can have a single grind. That's what we usually do when we also make burgers. This is it. You can see the big chunks of fat, big chunks of meat. As we have said, the cells are not broken so much, so this is going to be juicy, but when it gets cool, it's going to be more rubbery. Then we have the double grind. Usually the köftes at home are made from this double grind meat. As you can see, it's the same meat, but you don't see the fat content. It is more like, in a way, marbled, it's inside. And when you knead, you can get all the herbs and the flavors in. And the triple grinded meat is usually for the kids and the babies when you are trying to make a meatball. And the triple grind, not this one, but one without any fat, we use it for çiğ köfte, raw meatballs, and then the meatballs that we make with bulgur. We knead the bulgur with the meat. The fat has a cartilage content and the bulgur shouldn't be mixed with that cartilage. It's not so good. So anyways, we get plain black meat, we call, triple grinded, and then use it in meatballs with bulgur. So that's it. Now I believe it's time to make a great meatball. Yes, and a great köfte. Our Amazon shop is closing down. I think the knives are almost out and we have the tea glasses left. So if you're somewhere from America and want to have these beautiful tea glasses in one day, that's your last chance. We're gonna close the shop, so a reminder. For a half a kilo of meat, I get 1 egg. Then a tablespoon of mustard gets in. 3 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Italians could use balsamic vinegar for this. This is more like a combination of a lot of things. Then the dry ones can get in now. We have a clove of garlic. I like it peppery, so about a teaspoon of black pepper. And then a teaspoon of salt. 2 tablespoons of breadcrumbs. And finally, I'm going to add some parmesan cheese, but I'm going to add it a little later. Now, the kneading for this, we do not knead too much. We knead it so that the ingredients get into one another.
So are these roasting the meat?
Yes, as you can see, the meat was let's say this red, now it's more like a brownish color. We just make sure that every ingredient gets one into one another, that's it. And we don't add much. Then I add the parmesan in the last minute because I don't want it to totally disappear. I want some chunks around so that it will give a nice taste. To wet my hands, I get some water. To make a patty, we put the meat in between our hands. First, really pushing everything together. And then slowly, with my thumb, moving the palm of my hand up. Then I get round a bit, round and round and round. And then in the last minute, the fingertips gets into the roll. We almost get a perfect round shape. And then just both of my hands, just the palms work. And then voila, we get the meatball. Ideally, the meatball should sit for about half an hour for all the taste to get into one another. To köfte, we first add the liquids. In this case, the onion, as you can see, has a lot of juice, so almost like the liquid. I put the solid parts as well, and the liquid works like the rottener, and at the same time they are like small pillows of water inside, keeping the köfte easily to eat the next day too. I also have 1 egg. Then I add the herbs. For a meatball, always a cumin. You cannot have enough cumin on a meatball, which is like a tablespoon of cumin is needed. Then a bit of hotness, half a teaspoon of coriander, half a teaspoon of black pepper, and I like using nutmeg. In the Ottoman time, the köftes of Istanbul always carried nutmeg. In the households, not many people use it, but in the good meatball mixtures, there's always a nice smelling nutmeg. About 1/3 of a nutmeg, teaspoon of salt, and a bit of mint as a herb. Dried mint, you can use fresh mint. A bit of dried oregano, which is quite strong. Add the breadcrumbs, and then I knead well before adding my parsley. Now we see the onions, we see the greens. We need to knead this so that everything is the same color. So about 3 to 4 minutes at least. After pushing a lot of with my palm and fingers, even the sound of the meat changes. I would like to show you the difference. You can still see some cells, whereas in this one, you see some greenness and a bit of fat, but you cannot see chunks of meat anymore. Then we add the maydanoz, which is the parsley, and it will give a freshness to it. Usually the köftes made on the streets of Istanbul don't have parsley. Why?
Because our mothers put parsley.
Yes, why mothers do and the people outside don't?
They don't know their taste.
You know, köfte salesperson might not sell their köftes immediately. It could be a day or two, but the parsley would go brown and black, etc. So it will show how rotten the meat is. That's not preferable. Mothers do it immediately, so that's the basic difference. Then, making the patty. This is a bit easier than the meatball because you don't have to make a perfect shape. You put it in between your fingers first, have a bit of pushing, and then if you want a surface area, you can put your fingers in, and then voila, it is ready. The good side of the meatball, you can put 17 of them in one pan, but for the köfte, it won't be as much. You have to have 2 turns, and it started getting cooking. I can put a bit more olive oil here.
In how many minutes did it cook?
Again, when you're cooking meatballs, because they're round, for the inside to cook, you have to lower the heat a bit so that the inside can cook. For the köftes, because they're flat, you can do it in a higher heat. It smells wonderful. This is like a smell of childhood probably. While cooking the meatballs, different from the chunks of meat, you have to turn at least several times. Make it a little brown and then turn your meatball. This way, the fat is kept inside the meat. Oh. Now, how are we going to eat our meatball? It's always great with some bread. I did the Turkish one with some lavash, and I'm going to do the international one with something called lutanita. We have it on the channel. If you have time this summer, you must do it. Yes, this is the better way to do it. It's aubergine, red pepper, charcoal, and tomato, and some garlic. Now it's time for these beauties to get in. Voila. Ta-da-da-dam. Because it's a bowl, it can go around. And some basil. You think that it's over? No, it's not. The show is not over yet. A bit of fresh parmesan. Yes, all done. Meatballs and köftes. Now we're gonna eat as everyone and decide whether we are meatballers or köfters. Let's look at inside.
Ooh.
It has water, but it's soft.
You can see onions.
I
This
know.
is köfte.
This is
I
our,
know for 30 years, I don't know, or more.
yeah. We look at inside this one. No, it cooked 15 minutes ago, so the juices are now starting to finish.
We can say dry, but drier.
Dry. Ama very tasty.
Tastes good.
There's parmesan in it and there's Worcestershire sauce. Those are both umami enhancers. Two different tastes, both very good. Which one would you take home?
Both. Can I?
You have to make a choice.
I'm choosing köfte, I'm sorry.
And you?
I'm also choosing köfte. We are kind of biased, so you have to taste it. We'll give it to you. Okay, just one bite, then you have to try this one. Can't speak.
Very different from each other. Köfte is more soft and juicy. Meatball more has this umami feel that you said.
Umami feel, yeah. Thank you. Siz de gelin çocuklar, hadi gelin. Tabii now it is competing with Lütenitsa and köfte.
How is it Osman? Oh.
Try one köfte. Sen de mi? All köfte. Everyone is biased. Maybe it's not a great meatball recipe. I don't know. You try, guys. If you want to subscribe and if you haven't yet, this is the time to do so. This is a unique channel from somewhere that is having hard times. We're from Turkey. We are trying to get the best of Anatolia to the whole world. So all your support, financially, with a like, with sharing, is welcomed above our head. Thank you.